You women out there, y'all petty, man. Hey, LeBron, you're 100% right on these girls hating on Caitlin Clark. Y'all petty, girls. I expect men to be petty because we're the most insecure group in the world.
Oh, you are.
Y'all should be thinking.
Get ready, folks. A shocking announcement just rocked the sports world. The powerhouse trio Stephen A. Smith, Charles Barkley, and Shaquille O'Neal have dropped some game-changing news that's guaranteed to turn the sports landscape on its head. These three legends, known for their bold opinions and unmatched charisma, have set off a wave of speculation that's buzzing everywhere. I promise you, this is something no sports fan can afford to miss. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear is set to spark debates and dominate discussions for days to come. But before we reveal this bombshell, let's talk about a name that's been dominating basketball conversations recently, Caitlin Clark. If you've been paying attention, you already know she's something special. I mean, how many athletes can you compare to Steph Curry and actually mean it? That's right, I've called her the Steph Curry of women's basketball, and she lives up to every bit of that title. Clark has been a phenomenal force, redefining the game in ways we've never seen before. Her rise has been nothing short of meteoric, and she's already leaving a lasting impact on women's basketball as a whole. From the very start, she has displayed an extraordinary talent and unmatched competitive spirit that sets her apart. Every time she steps on the court, it's like magic. She captures the attention of everyone in the arena and leaves her opponents scrambling to keep up. Her skill set is a complete package. She can handle the ball, shoot from practically anywhere, and control the pace of the game with finesse. It's no wonder why so many consider her a future legend in the making. She's not just playing the game, she's transforming it, one electrifying play at a time. Now, here's the real hook. Clark's influence goes beyond just her individual skill. She has the potential to bring a revolutionary change to women's basketball, pushing it into a new era of recognition and respect. Every move she makes on the court is not just about the points she scores, it's a statement, a showcase of what the future of this sport could look like, and that's precisely why her story has everyone, from casual fans to basketball legends, sitting up and paying attention. This is just the beginning of her journey, and the waves she's making are about to get even bigger. Caitlin Clark's rise in the world of basketball has been nothing short of awe-inspiring. If you've been following her journey, you know that her climb to stardom didn't happen overnight. It was fueled by sheer talent, relentless drive, and an unparalleled competitive edge. She grew up in Iowa, showing early signs of greatness that would soon catapult her into the spotlight. Her basketball IQ, combined with her remarkable skill set, set her apart from her peers from a very young age, handling the ball like a seasoned pro, pulling off shots from impossible angles, and setting the game's tempo with incredible ease. It was clear she was destined for something extraordinary. Back in high school, it didn't take long for Caitlin to rise through the ranks. Coaches, scouts, and fans alike were left speechless by her ability to control the game. She wasn't just good, she was outplaying the competition at every turn. Colleges all over the nation scrambled to secure her commitment, recognizing that she was a game changer. But when it came time to make her choice, Caitlin made a bold decision that surprised many. She chose to stay close to home and play for the University of Iowa. And what a choice it was. This move didn't just shape her career, it transformed the entire Iowa program. From the moment she stepped onto the court in her first college game, Clark made it clear she was here to dominate. She brought a level of intensity and skill that left audiences and analysts buzzing. Three-point shots from way beyond the arc? No problem. Smooth mid-range jumpers? She nailed them effortlessly. And let's not forget her fearless drives to the basket, weaving through defenders as if they were mere obstacles on her path to victory. Every time opponents thought they had her figured out, she'd surprise them with a play they never saw coming. Double-teaming her didn't work. She'd simply pass out of it with laser-like precision, finding her teammates in perfect scoring positions. Trying to cover her one-on-one? Good luck with that. Her handles and speed made even the best defenders look helpless. She became the nightmare every team dreaded facing, creating headaches for coaches as they struggled to devise plans to contain her. But it's not just her offensive prowess that's impressive, it's the way she changes the entire dynamic of the game. Her presence on the court electrifies her team and sends a wave of energy through the crowd. Caitlin is not just an individual star, she's a phenomenon. A player who commands respect and pushes the boundaries of what women's basketball can achieve. And here's the real kicker, she's just getting started. Every match, every play is like a glimpse into the future of basketball, a preview of the greatness that is still unfolding. This is why everyone is watching. This is why her story matters. As Caitlin Clark's journey continued, her impact on the game became more evident with each passing moment. You see, her game is about much more than just scoring points. It's about redefining the way we look at women's basketball. The buzz around her grew louder as she began to shatter expectations and set new benchmarks. She wasn't just breaking records. She was rewriting what it meant to dominate the court. Clark's electrifying performances quickly made her the face of women's college basketball, and her star power was undeniable. Opponents couldn't figure out how to stop her, and every strategy they tried seemed to fall flat. She became a nightmare for defenses across the league, and it wasn't just because of her ability to score from any spot on the floor. Caitlin had mastered the art of playmaking, threading passes through the narrowest gaps and reading the game with a vision that most players could only dream of. If you doubled her, she'd whip the ball to an open teammate with pinpoint accuracy. If you left her unguarded for a second, she'd drain a shot from beyond the arc. And her court awareness? Simply unmatched. Her rise didn't just benefit her team, it ignited a spark in the world of women's basketball. Suddenly, more people were tuning in to watch her games. The crowds grew, the conversations expanded, and Caitlin became a household name, someone who could change the entire perception of the sport. She wasn't just playing for herself, she was playing for an entire generation of young athletes who looked up to her as a symbol of what was possible. The fact that she had chosen to stay at Iowa rather than join one of the more traditionally dominant programs made her story even more compelling. But Caitlin Clark wasn't just known for her incredible skill set, it was her mentality that set her apart. She played with a fiery passion that both inspired her teammates and intimidated her rivals. On the court, she wasn't just a player, she was a leader, demanding the best from herself and those around her. This fierce competitive drive led to comparisons with some of the sport's all-time greats. People began to see shades of LeBron's intensity, Curry's shooting range, and Magic's playmaking in her game. She wasn't just dominating, she was reshaping the narrative of what it means to be a leader in women's basketball. Her influence was felt far beyond the court. Young players everywhere started imitating her style, inspired by her fearlessness and creativity. Clark was becoming more than a star athlete, she was a cultural icon. In every game, every highlight reel, you could see it the way she took the sport and made it her own, setting a new standard for what female athletes could achieve. And here's the twist, this was only the beginning. Her story was just starting to unfold, and it promised to take the game to heights it had never reached before. Caitlin Clark's story isn't just one of talent, it's a narrative of relentless ambition and pure determination. When she arrived at Iowa, it didn't take long for her to establish herself as a game changer. From her first game, it was clear that this wasn't just another college athlete stepping onto the hardwood, this was a future legend in the making. Her scoring ability was unparalleled, three-point shots from well beyond the arc became her trademark, executed with a level of confidence and ease that left spectators in awe. It wasn't just the shots themselves, but the way she took them, the way she dared to do what others wouldn't even attempt. Defenders found themselves in impossible situations. If they tried to block her outside shots, she'd fake, drive to the basket, and finish with a finesse that seemed effortless. Her ball handling skills were elite, making it nearly impossible for opponents to strip her of possession. And if they thought they could double-team her and force a mistake, they'd soon find out how wrong they were. Caitlin had the rare ability to remain calm under pressure, scanning the floor to find her teammates with precision passes that often led to easy scores. It was basketball IQ at its finest, a young player executing with the poise and vision of a seasoned veteran. But what truly made Caitlin special was her impact on the game's momentum. Every time she stepped on the court, she changed the energy. Her presence alone made her team believe they could win any game, no matter the odds. It wasn't just her own stats that mattered to her, it was the success of the team as a whole. And that's what made her stand out, not just as a player but as a leader. She inspired those around her to rise to her level, pushing her teammates to be the best versions of themselves. Caitlin's rise coincided with a surge in popularity for women's basketball. As word of her talent spread, viewership numbers for her game skyrocketed. Sports fans who hadn't previously paid much attention to the women's league found themselves captivated by her performances. She wasn't just an athlete, she was a phenomenon, a magnetic force pulling more eyes toward the sport. The Caitlin Clark effect had officially taken hold, creating a buzz that even her fiercest critics couldn't deny. However, what separates Caitlin from many other rising stars is her humility. Despite the growing fame, she remains focused on her game, constantly working to refine her skills. She doesn't let the accolades or comparisons distract her. Instead, she uses them as fuel to push herself further. This grounded approach not only makes her relatable but also sets a powerful example for young athletes everywhere. It's as if she's saying, yes, I'm good, but I can be better. That mindset has been the key to her rapid ascent in the basketball world. As Caitlin Clark's reputation grew, so did the weight of expectations on her shoulders. Yet, game after game, she continued to rise to the occasion. The pressure didn't faze her, it fueled her. When the stakes were high, she seemed to thrive, delivering performances that left fans and analysts in utter disbelief. She became known for her clutch moments, those heart-pounding seconds when the game hung in the balance. With the clock winding down and defenses closing in, Caitlin would step up, hitting shots that defied logic and showcased her fearless nature. Her relentless drive didn't just make her a star, it made her a game-changer for the sport as a whole. Coaches and players around the league took notice of her style of play. Her ability to score from virtually any spot on the court began to influence how teams strategized, not just against her, but in how they approached their own offensive game plans. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was redefining it, pushing the boundaries of what was possible for female athletes in the sport. Suddenly, it wasn't just about being good, it was about changing the entire narrative of the game. But as she shined brighter, she also faced the darker side of fame. Some players in the league viewed her rapid ascent with a mix of awe and jealousy. Here was a young athlete, barely out of college, already becoming the face of women's basketball. It stirred a competitive spirit among her peers, and for some, that competitiveness boiled over into frustration. However, Caitlin refused to let the negativity affect her focus. She knew that staying true to her game was the only way to continue her journey to greatness. And it was her mental strength that kept her grounded amidst all the noise. Her presence wasn't just transforming basketball, it was also changing the business side of the sport. Ticket sales surged whenever she played, with arenas filling up as fans flocked to see her in action. Jersey sales hit record highs, and TV viewership numbers soared during her games. In a short span of time, Caitlin had become a powerhouse both on and off the court, driving increased interest and revenue for women's basketball. The sports industry began to recognize the potential of what she could bring to the WNBA once she made that leap. Despite the buzz and rising tensions, Caitlin maintained a focus that set her apart. She wasn't just in it for personal glory, she was in it to uplift the entire sport. Her humility and passion resonated with fans and teammates alike. Off the court, she took the time to engage with young players, signing autographs and offering words of encouragement. It was clear Caitlin Clark wasn't just aiming to be a great player, she was striving to leave a lasting legacy that would open doors for the next generation of athletes. Caitlin Clark was already changing the game, but what truly set her apart was her ability to elevate those around her. She wasn't just a star, she was the ultimate team player. In every match, you could see how she read the floor, not just looking for her own shot, but finding ways to get her teammates involved. Her court vision was second to none. She had an almost magical way of threading no-look passes through defenders, creating scoring opportunities out of thin air. It was this dual threat, her scoring and playmaking, that made her nearly impossible to guard. The defenses scrambled to find ways to contain her. Coaches tried double teams, traps, and defensive schemes that they thought might slow her down. But Caitlin adapted to every challenge. If teams focused too much on shutting down her shooting, she'd pivot to setting up her teammates, dishing out assists that showcased her impeccable timing and understanding of the game. And if they backed off to cover the passing lanes, she'd unleash her deadly jump shot, scoring from distances that left defenders shaking their heads. It was a masterclass in basketball IQ, proving that Caitlin wasn't just a player with raw talent, she was a strategist, constantly thinking 2 steps ahead. But let's be clear, her influence stretched beyond the court. As she continued to make headlines with her record-breaking performances, she became a symbol of what women's sports could be. The excitement around her games led to a surge in TV ratings, with more people tuning in to watch women's basketball than ever before. Sports networks began to air her games in prime slots, acknowledging the drawing power she brought to the sport. And it wasn't just about viewership, Caitlin's magnetic presence was translating into real business. Merchandise sales for women's basketball spiked, and sponsorships began rolling in, all because of the energy and attention she brought to the court. Caitlin's story wasn't just inspiring fans, it was sending a clear message to corporations and investors that women's basketball was not to be overlooked. She showed them that there was a market, a passionate audience hungry for more high-quality, thrilling basketball. And as her popularity soared, so did the opportunities for other players. Her impact created ripples throughout the league, drawing in new fans and giving a much-needed boost to the sport's visibility. However, what made her truly special was her humility in the face of this newfound fame. Despite the endorsements, the praise, and the growing celebrity status, Caitlin stayed grounded. She kept her focus on improving her game and supporting her teammates. In interviews, she spoke not of personal accolades, but of the pride she felt in being part of something bigger than herself, a movement pushing women's sports to new heights. It was this blend of skill, charisma, and authenticity that made her not just a star but a role model for aspiring athletes everywhere. Her journey was a testament to the power of hard work, passion, and the belief that you can change the world, one game at a time. Caitlin Clark was quickly becoming more than just an extraordinary talent. She was now the face of a changing era in women's basketball. As her career progressed, records began to fall at an astonishing rate. She wasn't simply playing the game, she was rewriting the script on what it meant to be an elite guard in the sport. Her performances left audiences breathless and her opponents in awe. Every time she set foot on the court, it felt like history in the making, as if everyone watching knew they were witnessing something truly special. But it wasn't just about the numbers or the highlight reels, it was about how Caitlin played the game with heart and intelligence. She didn't just rely on her athletic ability to make plays, she outthought her opponents. Reading defenses like a seasoned pro, she made quick decisions that controlled the flow of the game. Her instincts were razor sharp, and she knew exactly when to slow the pace, when to push the tempo, and how to exploit even the smallest gaps in the defense. It was basketball as a form of art, and Caitlin was the artist at work. And then there was her incredible composure under pressure. In clutch moments, with the game on the line and the intensity at its peak, Caitlin thrived. While others might crumble, she seemed to become even more focused, relishing those high-pressure situations. She could take the last-second shot without hesitation, or make the defensive stop that turned the tide of the game. Each of these moments added to her growing legend, solidifying her status as not just a talented player, but a game-changer with the kind of poise that separated the greats from the rest. Her impact went beyond the scoreboard. She started to draw comparisons to the greatest in the sport, not just among women, but in all of basketball. Experts couldn't stop talking about how rare it was to find someone with such a mature, composed approach to the game at such a young age. They marveled at how she combined the sharp shooting of a Steph Curry with the court vision of a Magic Johnson. Yet, even with all these comparisons, Caitlin maintained her unique identity on the court. She wasn't trying to emulate anyone, she was creating her own legacy, setting a new standard for what the future of the game could be. Meanwhile, her influence on the court was creating waves across the sport. Games featuring Caitlin Clark were breaking viewership records, attracting audiences far beyond the traditional fan base. Sports networks were quick to notice the Caitlin Clark effect and began to feature more women's basketball games, especially those involving her. The buzz around her wasn't just a passing trend, it was changing the very landscape of the league, bringing new eyes to the game, and elevating the WNBA's presence in a way that hadn't been seen before. Her journey was more than just personal success, it was about opening doors and paving the way for future generations to come. With each passing game, Caitlin Clark's influence on basketball continued to grow, and so did her list of achievements. She wasn't just setting records, she was setting a new tone for what the sport could be. As her career progressed, her presence began to redefine how the game was played and watched. Fans were not just following a player, they were witnessing the rise of an icon. And that energy was infectious. Every time she stepped onto the court, there was a buzz in the air. A sense that something incredible was about to happen. It wasn't just about her scoring ability, although that alone was enough to leave spectators in awe. What truly set Caitlin apart was her complete mastery of the game. She had the skill to shoot from nearly anywhere on the court, the vision to set up plays for her teammates, and the leadership to rally her team in tough moments. Her ability to read the game and anticipate the next move made her a nightmare for defenses. Coaches began to realize that there was no simple way to contain her. She could carve up a defense with a three-pointer from deep, slice through the lane with a drive to the basket, or whip a no-look pass to a cutting teammate with perfect timing. And then there was the emotional side of her play. Caitlin played with a fire that was palpable and intensity that inspired not just her teammates, but everyone watching. She wasn't just out there to score points, she was out there to dominate, to change the game in ways that left an impact long after the final buzzer sounded. Her fierce competitiveness drew comparisons to legends like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, players known for their killer instinct and relentless drive to win. She set high standards for herself and demanded the same from those around her, creating a culture of excellence on and off the court. But as much as Caitlin was a force to be reckoned with on the hardwood, she never let her rising stardom go to her head. Even as accolades piled up and the media spotlight grew, she remained humble and grounded. When interviewed, she didn't boast about her achievements or seek the limelight. Instead, she spoke about her passion for the game, her commitment to her teammates, and her desire to see women's basketball reach new heights. This attitude not only endeared her to fans but also set her apart as a role model for young athletes everywhere. The Caitlin Clark effect was being felt far beyond the court. With every stellar performance, she was attracting a new wave of attention to women's basketball. Games featuring her were drawing record viewership, and stadiums were packed to the brim whenever she played. She was a magnet, pulling fans into the sport who might have overlooked it in the past. And it wasn't just the excitement of her on-court heroics, it was the way she represented the game. Strong, smart, and unrelenting in her pursuit of greatness. She showed the world that women's basketball was not just worthy of attention, it was worthy of respect, passion, and celebration. Caitlin Clark's journey wasn't just changing perceptions of the sport, it was creating tangible results. The numbers didn't lie. Attendance at games featuring Caitlin reached all-time highs, with thousands of fans flocking to arenas just to catch a glimpse of her in action. And it wasn't just the physical presence, her influence stretched into the digital world as well. Social media was ablaze with her highlight reels, clips of her logo, three-pointers, pinpoint passes, and game-winning shots went viral within minutes. Suddenly, women's basketball was trending, and it was largely thanks to her. With this surge in attention came an undeniable economic impact. Jersey sales soared, sponsorships flooded in, and ticket sales hit unprecedented levels. Networks that had once hesitated to air women's basketball games were now eager to showcase every match involving Caitlin, knowing that her star power would draw viewers. The WNBA began to see a shift in its popularity, driven by the magnetic pull of Caitlin's performances. She wasn't just making the game more exciting, she was making it more marketable. And that's the kind of influence that changes an entire league. But with great attention came great scrutiny. As Caitlin rose to prominence, she encountered not just praise but also criticism and envy. Some players and fans felt overshadowed by her rapid ascent, questioning why she received so much attention. Others pointed to her confidence on the court, interpreting it as arrogance. However, Caitlin stayed above the noise. She knew that in the world of sports, success often comes with a target on your back. Rather than getting distracted by negativity, she used it as fuel, pushing herself to improve even further. Her focus was clear: she wasn't just here to be a star, she was here to change the game. And change the game she did. Off the court, Caitlin actively worked to uplift women's basketball. She used her platform to advocate for the sport, to speak about the need for equal recognition and support. She made it a point to engage with young fans, especially aspiring athletes, encouraging them to pursue their dreams with the same relentless determination she had shown. Her story became an inspiration, a message that with hard work and passion, you could break down barriers and set new standards, no matter the field you're in. Her impact was undeniable. Sponsors and corporations started to see the potential in women's basketball as a profitable and exciting avenue. The surge in ticket sales, merchandise, and TV ratings proved that there was a growing market for the sport, and Caitlin was at the forefront of this shift. Yet, despite the business boom, she never lost sight of why she played the game. For her, it was always about the love of basketball, about the thrill of competition, and about representing something bigger than herself. It was this authenticity that drew people to her: fans, young players, and even critics who couldn't help but respect her journey. As Caitlin Clark's impact on basketball continued to grow, it became increasingly clear that she wasn't just playing for the present, she was shaping the future of the sport. Her influence was now felt at every level, from young players picking up a ball for the first time to seasoned veterans of the WNBA. Coaches around the country began adapting their game plans, realizing that to compete in this new era, they had to embrace a style of play that Caitlin epitomized: fast, fearless, and endlessly creative. She was setting a blueprint for what future guards could aspire to. Her combination of deep shooting range, ball handling skills, and basketball IQ was a package that redefined the traditional roles in women's basketball. Players began to model their training regimens after hers, focusing on not just physical fitness but also mental sharpness and court vision. Youth leagues and high schools across the country saw an influx of young athletes eager to mimic her style of play, practicing those long-range shots and lightning-fast passes that had become her signature moves. But it wasn't just about her skills. Caitlin brought a mentality to the court that was contagious. She played with an edge, a hunger that inspired her teammates to push their limits. During games, you could see how her determination would lift the entire team, especially in tough situations. She was not afraid to take charge, to demand the ball in clutch moments, or to make the smart play that turned the tide of the game. That kind of leadership was rare, and it set an example for what it meant to be a true game changer. Off the court, her presence was equally commanding. As her star rose, she took every opportunity to shine a spotlight on women's basketball, advocating for the support and recognition the sport deserved. She wasn't just satisfied with breaking personal records, she wanted to break down barriers for the entire league. Caitlin used her growing platform to speak up for issues that mattered, whether it was equal pay, better media coverage, or improved facilities for women's sports. Her voice carried weight, and it resonated with fans, athletes, and sponsors alike. And this wasn't a one-woman show. Caitlin was always quick to credit her teammates and coaches for their role in her success. She emphasized that basketball was a team sport, that no victory was hers alone. This humility only added to her charm, making her not just a star, but a beloved figure in the basketball community. She had the kind of charisma that made people want to root for her, not just because of her skill, but because of who she was, a player who gave her all, not just for herself, but for the sport she loved. The world of women's basketball was beginning to change in real time, and Caitlin Clark was at the heart of that transformation. The conversations around the sport shifted. No longer was it an afterthought in the world of athletics. Thanks to Caitlin's efforts both on and off the court, the WNBA and women's college basketball were now commanding respect and attention. It was a revolution in the making, and Caitlin was leading the charge with every shot, every assist, and every word she spoke. As Caitlin Clark continued her rise, the ripple effects were felt across the basketball world. The Caitlin Clark effect wasn't just boosting the profile of women's basketball, it was sparking change in ways few had anticipated. More young girls now saw a future for themselves in the sport, dreaming of emulating her electrifying style on the court. Schools and youth programs experienced a surge in female participation, many of these new players inspired by Caitlin's story. She had become more than just a star, she was a beacon of hope and possibility for the next generation. Her games had become must-see events, drawing fans from all corners of the country. Whether in packed arenas or in front of televisions, audiences tuned in to witness her magic on the court. It wasn't just about the scores or the stats, it was the way she played, with heart, determination, and a flair that made each moment unpredictable and thrilling. Broadcasters and sports analysts couldn't stop talking about her impact. Commentators marveled at her court vision, her deep shooting range, and her competitive fire, while viewers found themselves captivated by her every move. In an era where attention spans were shrinking, Caitlin's style of play had the power to hold people's gaze, to make them care. This surge of interest began to translate into tangible benefits for the sport. Viewership numbers for women's basketball games soared, breaking records and drawing advertisers eager to associate their brands with this newfound excitement. Merchandise sales hit new heights as fans clamored to show their support, buying jerseys emblazoned with her name and number. The WNBA and women's college basketball, long overshadowed by their male counterparts, were finally stepping into the spotlight, fueled in large part by Caitlin's charisma and skill. Yet, even as the spotlight shone brightly on her, Caitlin remained focused on the bigger picture. In interviews, she was constantly advocating for her sport, emphasizing that the success of women's basketball was not about one player but about the entire league moving forward together. She spoke passionately about the need for more investment in women's sports, from better facilities to increased media coverage. Caitlin was aware of the responsibility that came with her rising fame and used it not to boost her ego, but to drive change for all women athletes. Her influence was undeniable. The WNBA began to explore new opportunities, looking at how to capitalize on this growing interest. More games were scheduled during prime viewing hours, and advertising campaigns started featuring women's basketball stars, acknowledging the market they had previously underestimated. It was a turning point, a shift in how the sport was perceived, and Caitlin was right at the center of it. But even as these changes took place, Caitlin kept her eyes on the game. Her focus was unwavering. She wasn't here just to make headlines, she was here to win, to compete at the highest level, and to redefine what was possible in women's basketball. and every time she stepped onto the court, she reminded everyone why they had fallen in love with the game in the first place. With every shot she made, every play she orchestrated, she was writing a new chapter in basketball history, one that promised a brighter future for generations to come. Caitlin Clark's rise had not only inspired a new generation of players but also transformed how the sport was covered by the media. Commentators and sports journalists who had once overlooked women's basketball found themselves in awe of her performances. They couldn't help but talk about the way she changed the flow of the game, how every move was calculated yet spontaneous, blending skill with instinct. Sports shows began featuring her highlights alongside those of the NBA, treating her game-winning shots and dazzling assists with the same reverence as the league's top male players. It was a shift that had been a long time coming, and Caitlin was at the forefront, leading the charge. The conversation around women's basketball was changing. It wasn't just about comparing it to men's basketball anymore, it was about celebrating it in its own right. And Caitlin was the perfect ambassador for this new era. She played with a style that was unique, full of confidence, creativity, and precision. Her deep three-pointers weren't just shots, they were statements. Her no-look passes weren't just assists, they were moments of magic that left fans and opponents alike in awe. She was proving that women's basketball had its own brand of excitement, one that could captivate audiences and draw them into the story of the game. Her brands and sponsors took notice, seeing in Caitlin not just an athlete, but a marketable figure who could bridge gaps and draw diverse audiences to the sport. Advertisements began featuring her image, and marketing campaigns rolled out that highlighted the intensity and skill of women's basketball. For the first time, it felt like the sport was being recognized for its full potential, and Caitlin was a major catalyst in that shift. She wasn't just an athlete, she was a brand in herself, representing not only talent but also empowerment, hard work, and the drive to push boundaries. Despite all this newfound fame, Caitlin stayed true to herself. She often credited her family, coaches, and teammates for their support, acknowledging that her success was a team effort. She didn't shy away from discussing the challenges she faced or the criticism that came with being in the spotlight. Instead, she addressed them head-on, turning doubts into motivation and obstacles into learning experiences. It was this openness, this willingness to embrace both the highs and lows, that made her relatable and grounded, even as she soared to new heights. And through it all, her commitment to the sport never wavered. Caitlin remained focused on what truly mattered, the game itself. Each practice session, each drill, was an opportunity to refine her craft, to push her limits further. She was constantly studying her performance, looking for areas to improve, ways to become an even more versatile and unpredictable player on the court. It was this relentless drive that had gotten her to this point, and she knew it was what would carry her forward as she continued to break new ground. Her journey was far from over. In fact, it felt like she was just getting started. Every game, every season added another layer to her legacy, building a story that was inspiring not just for what it represented in women's basketball, but for what it symbolized in sports as a whole. Caitlin Clark had become a trailblazer, and her impact would be felt for years to come. Caitlin Clark's journey was a testament to how one player's passion and drive could ignite a movement. She had evolved into a symbol of possibility, showing that with talent, determination, and a touch of charisma, you could reshape the very fabric of the sport. Yet, despite the accolades and attention, she remained laser-focused on her mission to elevate women's basketball and to prove that it could capture the hearts of fans just as much as any other sport. Her influence on the court was undeniable, but what truly set Caitlin apart was her impact off the court. She had become a role model for aspiring athletes, showing them that success wasn't just about individual talent, it was about teamwork, dedication, and the will to overcome challenges. She openly shared her experiences, from the pressures of being in the spotlight to the hard work behind every moment of glory. In doing so, she broke down the barriers between the athlete and the audience, making the journey relatable to those watching. Girls across the country, and even the world, began to look up to her, dreaming of one day following in her footsteps. The economic ripple effect was equally remarkable. As Caitlin continued to dominate the headlines, merchandise sales for women's basketball soared to new heights. Jerseys bearing her name and number flew off the shelves, and ticket sales for games featuring her team were at an all-time high. The energy she brought to the sport wasn't just filling seats in the stadiums, it was also driving revenue streams that had previously been untapped. Sponsorship deals that were once reserved primarily for male athletes now saw a lucrative market in women's sports, thanks to the wave Caitlin had helped create. Sports analysts began to draw comparisons between her impact and that of legends who had transformed their respective games. They spoke of how Michael Jordan had elevated the NBA in the 90s and how Tiger Woods had redefined golf. Now, Caitlin was being mentioned in the same breath as a player who could fundamentally change the trajectory of women's basketball. She wasn't just a star athlete, she was a catalyst for change, challenging outdated perceptions and paving the way for future generations to step into the spotlight. As her story continued to unfold, the narrative wasn't just about her personal achievements anymore, it was about the rise of women's basketball as a whole. Caitlin understood this, and she embraced the responsibility that came with her platform. She didn't just want to be remembered as a great player, she wanted to be remembered as a force that moved the game forward. Her dedication to the sport extended beyond her individual success. She actively participated in community events, clinics, and initiatives aimed at growing women's basketball at all levels, from youth leagues to the professional stage. And that was the beauty of her journey. It wasn't just about her setting records and breaking barriers, it was about opening doors for others. She inspired not just with her play, but with her vision for the future of the sport. Caitlin was redefining what it meant to be a basketball star, proving that you could be both a fierce competitor and a humble advocate for the game. The ripple effect of her impact was just beginning to be felt, hinting at a legacy that would extend far beyond her own career. As Caitlin Clark continued to carve out her legacy, it became clear that she was not just playing for herself, but for the future of women's basketball. Each game she played, each milestone she achieved, was about more than personal glory, it was a statement of what the sport could be. She embodied the message that women's basketball was filled with talent, skill, and drama worthy of the spotlight. The effect was undeniable. The league began to shift, and the world started paying attention in ways it never had before. Her influence wasn't just confined to inspiring young athletes, it was changing the very fabric of the league. The WNBA and women's college basketball began to see an influx of new fans. People who had previously overlooked the sport found themselves drawn in by the excitement and intensity Caitlin brought to the court. Broadcasters scheduled more primetime slots for women's games, advertisers saw a market worth investing in, and stadiums that once struggled to fill seats now buzzed with energy. Caitlin had not only captured the hearts of die-hard basketball fans, but also managed to attract a broader audience that spanned across age groups and demographics. But what made Caitlin truly special was how she navigated her role as both a player and an ambassador for the sport. She was aware of the impact she was making and the door she was opening, yet she always remained grounded. In interviews, she often spoke about her love for the game and the importance of teamwork, humility, and perseverance. It was never just about her records or her highlights, it was about how her journey could inspire others. She wanted young girls watching to believe that they, too, could achieve greatness in a sport that was ready to embrace their talents. Her career wasn't without its challenges, but Caitlin turned every setback into an opportunity to grow. When defenses targeted her, she adapted her game, becoming an even more versatile and unpredictable force. When critics doubted her abilities, she responded with performances that left no room for debate. And when others tried to label her success as a mere phase, she proved them wrong by consistently elevating her game, season after season. She didn't just meet expectations, she exceeded them, setting new standards for what could be accomplished on the court. By now, Caitlin's story had become about so much more than just basketball. It was about breaking down barriers, redefining possibilities, and creating a new narrative for women's sports. Her impact could be seen in the countless young athletes who picked up a basketball, inspired by the idea that they, too, could one day play on the big stage. Her legacy wasn't just in the points she scored or the records she broke, it was in the future she helped build for the sport. As we look ahead, it's clear that Caitlin Clark is more than just a standout athlete, she's a pioneer, a leader, and a force of change. She has shown that with passion, skill, and an unyielding drive, you can do more than just play the game, you can transform it. And that's exactly what she's done. With every shot, every assist, and every moment of brilliance, she continues to inspire, leaving behind a legacy that will echo in the courts and hearts of basketball fans for generations to come. Caitlin Clark isn't just a star, she's a revolution in the making.